Okay, some of your classmates have asked that I go over like I do in class, and like teach each one of the methods. So this first one is when you're dividing a monomial. This is an example of a monomial term. So notice the number that we're dividing by, which is negative 2x squared, is one term. It doesn't have a plus or a minus sign separating it from, to split it up into two terms. So these require you to do mainly 3 steps. Split the numerator, which is the first term, up into many fractions, and we're going to put the same denominator at the bottom. The denominator is the second term, which is the monomial. So I'm going to write 6x cubed over this same denominator. Keep the sign, plus 8x squared over the same denominator, 2x squared. And then I will put minus, because the sign is minus, 4x over negative 2x squared. So I've done step 1, split the numerator up into many fractions with the same denominator. Now we're going to simplify the fraction. So when you simplify the fraction, we're talking about the big numbers. You can use your calculator or you can just do regular division. So if I'm looking only at the numbers, 6 divided by negative 2 will give me a negative 3. 8 divided by negative 2 will give me a negative 4. And then a negative 4 and a negative 2 will give me a positive 2 for my number with this one. So this is just me simplifying the numbers, only the numbers. All right, now we're going to do the variables. Number 3, subtract the exponents for the variables. If you get a negative number, then you're going to put the variable and the exponent at the bottom. If you get a positive number when you subtract, which is the exponent, then you're going to put that variable and exponent at the top of your fraction that you get here. So 3 minus 2 is 1, which means I have 1x left and it will be at the top. So I don't need to create a fraction because it's a whole number. For the second one, 2 minus 2 is 0. So that means they simply cancel each other out and I do not have an x term left. For the last one, when I subtract, I have 1 minus 2 because this one has an imaginary 1. So 1 minus 2 would be negative 1, which means I need to put it at the bottom. Notice when I put it at the bottom, it does not have a negative exponent. The negative just tells you where to put it, top or bottom. And this is it. This is my simplified answer. All right, for the second one, we're dividing by a binomial term. So I'm teaching synthetic division, and you can only use this when the term that you're dividing by just has an x in front of it. So notice compared to this example, this one has a 2 in front of the x. You would not be able to do synthetic division here. You can only do it when it starts with just x. All right. So the first thing we want to do is make sure that it's in standard form. If you're missing a term, then you're going to put in a 0. So I look at this one. My exponent goes 2. This one has an imaginary exponent of 1 and then 0. So I'm not missing an exponent. So I don't have to fill in a 0 here. We're going to write the coefficients of each of the terms. And so in this one, that would be 3. And then I would have negative 10. And then I would have negative 8. So the coefficient for my x squared term was 3. My coefficient for my x term was negative 10. And then my coefficient for the last term, of course, it doesn't have a variable. Now, to get the outside number, which is your multiplier, you're going to change the sign of the divisor. The divisor is the number that comes after the division sign. So whatever number's in that parenthesis, you're going to change the sign of it, and you're going to write it to the left of these numbers. So I'm going to put it over here, and that would be a -4. So now I draw my line. All right, so what we're going to do, step number 4, bring down the first number, which is a 3. I like to circle the multiplier so that you know this is the number you're multiplying by. So whatever number you put underneath this line, you multiply it by the multiplier. So 3 times -4 is -12. And then you add the numbers. Now, if you don't know your sign rules, please use a calculator for this step. And you will put it in the calculator exactly the way you see it. So -10 minus 12. That's 2 different buttons on your calculator. So we get -22. Now I'm going to take this number, since he's under the line, and multiply it by the multiplier. So -22 and a -4 will give me a +88. All right, then I add these two numbers, which I actually end up subtracting because the signs are different. So I get a +80. The last number is your remainder. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to add back in the variables, okay? So our last term, we've done that, is the remainder. Now you're going to reduce your highest exponent by 1 and then add in the variables. So my highest exponent was a 2 in the start of this problem. So that means we're going to start with this variable because that would be 1 down from the starting one. So this answer is 3x minus 22 plus 80 over what you started with, which is x plus 4. So anytime you have a remainder, you just write it over whatever you started with here.